Shabbat shalom, y'all. I hope you're doing well. We are here for our weekend reflection message. We are using the Radiant Sun Oracle and the Dreaming Way Tarot. Before we get into the reading, thank you for all the new subscribers for joining the channel. And if you haven't already, maybe you should subscribe too. Like this video, comment, share. All the actions taken on any content helps so much. It helps the videos get out into the algorithm. It helps other people find them. And it definitely is a huge support and encouragement and a help to content creators. Sorry, my neighbors made a noise and it scared me like I was facing my own death. Hypervigilant much? This is the tribulations. Okay, so the first card up was Bluff. This is Jupiter in Gemini, which Jupiter actually just went into Gemini, interestingly enough, expanding our excitement with ideas and our curiosities, really stimulating the intellect, getting us excited about wanting to explore and go on adventures, and maybe has us a little bit all over the place. Jupiter expands for good, but sometimes to a detriment as well. So whilst Jupiter could be increasing our flow of creativity and ideas and our inspiration and ability to communicate those and spread those ideas, it also can expand our attention deficit disorder and make us like really distracted by all the shiny objects. So that is one of the things to sort of try to hone in the discipline right now. And that makes sense looking at the rest of the reading, because it didn't occur to me until just now that Jupiter has just moved recently into Gemini, and this is Jupiter in Gemini card. So the Bluff card, like, it's not as negative as it looks. It's sort of like the energy of like showing up before you're ready, or like fake it till you make it kind of thing. This is a conjurer doing a sleight of hand, and you're not quite sure whether you're seeing butterflies up here or axes, right? And so this card talks about, like, it gives an example of a surgeon. Every surgeon has to do their first surgery. And at that point, they don't feel prepared. They're worried. Lives are at stake. They feel out of their depth. They don't feel like maybe experienced enough, or they might have imposter syndrome. So this is a card that is hinting at maybe a feeling of imposter syndrome, but that we can push through and get past, and just kind of jump in there and do it, and don't be too timid about it. The next card that we got is Venus in Libra, Indecision, which this has been coming up for like the last 2 or 3 weeks. And I feel like one of the themes in the last couple of weeks has been trying to help us get over whatever has been blocking us from forward progress. And so it feels like there is something that is causing freezing, like a freezing response, like in a trauma response, where that's what's getting us stuck. And so there's a trigger, or maybe various triggers, setting us off, and it's causing like this hesitation, timidity, second guessing ourselves, or like getting into a state of rumination where we're like going back and forth in our mind, or we go in a rabbit hole of like research before we can just decisively take an action. It's like we can't really we're not owning our authority. We're not owning our sovereignty. It's like we're really pussyfooting around, so to speak. So there's something that is preventing us from being of one mind. Some inner conflict or cognitive dissonance where we might have a conscious thought that we want something or that we want to do something, but then there's an unconscious thought or subconscious pattern built in that's like a defense mechanism that's trying to also work against us having what we think we want, because it thinks it's protecting us. It thinks that the thing we want will bring us ill and unintended consequences that will cost us something or prevent us from having something that we want. So it's like a conflict of interest, or our subconscious believes that what we want is a conflict of interest, and therefore it does things to try to protect us from this thing. So to our outer consciousness, we're like, I want this thing. I want this thing. Why do I keep like self-sabotaging? Why are there these like random challenges that keep coming up? Like, why is there always a diversion preventing me from connecting with this thing? And it could very well be something sitting in our subconscious that's still throwing us into like trauma responses. So like fight, flight, freeze, and fawn and limerence are all trauma responses. Fight and flight are kind of, if you're like super wound up and you're feeling really high strung, like you're probably in fight or flight. But if you're feeling like frozen, procrastinating, maybe like blasé, lackadaisical, you're like avoidant, you don't want to do it, then you're probably in freeze. Or maybe fawn is more like you're trying to fawn over someone to make something right. Like if you think that they're upset with you, then you're like going out of your way to like try to make it good and try to make them happy and do everything that they want. Like that's fawning. Limerence is the one that's more like getting stuck in freezing mode, because limerence is when you get dreamy and obsessive about something that's unrealistic, and it's most of the time directed at a person. But I consider like getting into a fantasy state about your dreams and goals also kind of limerent as well, because you're not making this, it's not being materialized, it's just being dreamed about, but like no, and there's longing there, but there's no action being taken. And so when you're limerent about a person, it's like you're projecting this kind of crush or like obsessive crush at them, but it's not reciprocated. And it's to the point where you're it's like you're spending too much, it's on your mind too much, it's taking too much space in your like consciousness. It's not just like a regular like crush where you're like, oh, this person's cute or whatever. It's like it starts taking your time, and it's a thing that your nervous system is doing to distract you, so that you're kind of like in a state of like safety. Stay put, right? Stay in this little safe spot right here and watch TV in your mind. Dream about dreamy person, right? But don't go into the danger. So it's a defense mechanism that your subconscious triggers you into, that's a version of freezing, but it like won't, like you can't be taking action during that. There's actually like symptoms of freezing, like, and it's subtle, but it's like you might be an adult who's sitting down to like get some work done, and you're not avoiding the work, you're sitting there and like you can't do it. Like it's just like it won't, like your efforts aren't fruitful, like you literally can't take the action, you can't make the decision, you can't get the thought out, or like you try to, but then all of a sudden, like again, seemingly unrelated challenges pop up like magic. And so that we might beat ourselves up about that, having that pattern and having that habit, thinking that it's just like our personality is just like we need to just toughen up. But it actually could be that you have like stored trauma from the past that's actually still in your nervous system that hasn't been like healed or reprogrammed, and it's kind of sending you into like a tizzy. And so all of us can get dysregulated. Our nervous system can get dysregulated, and we can go into, when the nervous system becomes dysregulated, it throws us into trauma response. So you don't even necessarily have to have a traumatic event in your past that's like some big, huge thing. You can have like subtle trauma, you can have childhood trauma, or it can be like you can have a very sensitive nervous system. And it may not be that you've had like these big traumatic events, but you might still be thrown into fight, flight, freeze, fawn. We all have moments of getting into these response modes But it's like when we get stuck in one, or we get stuck oscillating in extremes, bouncing back and forth from one and another, that's when the nervous system's dysregulated. Like it can't return back to normal. Like sometimes it's good to be in those states because that's what's required, like to get through the moment. But you need to be able to like come back into like equilibrium. So I think that is playing a role in the indecision, but I think also the universe is like, hey, you need to be able to make a decision and just own the consequences without being so terrified of making a mistake. Like generally, you know, if you're afraid, if you're like, oh, I can't make a decision, I don't know, what if I choose wrong? It's like, just what's the big deal? Like, it's not going to be the end of the world. I mean, what if it is? One of these days it will be, but this time it's probably not going to be. So it's not going to be the end of the world. Just own the choice and let the chips fall where they may. And then do what you need to after that to, you know, adjust or whatever. But don't be so afraid that you're just frozen and you can't do anything. Because that is actually almost more dangerous than making the mistake in the first place. Because then at least with the mistake, you're falling forward, you're making progress, you're ruling things out, and you're learning, and you're building your skills, and you're cutting your teeth. But if you're frozen, you're not getting that experience, and you're not ruling things out, and you've got like this mounting regret and like unexercised hopes. So, and then the last card is friendship. And it's funny because it doesn't really fit in with the rest of the reading, other than in two ways. One, there was a note in the booklet about having, well, I'll just read it. That way you can see how it ties in. But I think that that's circling back around to the childhood trauma that I think is causing trauma response patterns that are keeping us in like states of procrastination when we want to be more fruitful and we're having a hard time with it and we just don't know, we don't understand. Because it's like you might, you know, be a disciplined person who's trying to, you know, to follow through, and it's just still just fruitless. So here's the note. The card itself is the moon in Cancer. Wow, we have like two celestial bodies in their home sign, which is interesting. So the moon in Cancer, the early influence of parents, whether enjoyed or not, remains a strong influence throughout life. Now, during our weekly romance oracle reading last night, family healing came up as a big issue. And we've been delving deep into the subconscious and the defense mechanisms and healing inner child and reparenting inner child the last couple of weeks. So it's like, again, we're still in this theme. The healing of the parent wounds are coming up. And so if you can see these triggers coming up and like getting you all shook, then try to pause and try not to react until you've sat with the discomfort long enough to re-examine it, to let it bring up the old shit. Like, I don't want to bring up all this old shit. It's like, no, let it bring up the old shit. Don't do anything about it. Don't pop off or anything, but like observe it. But this time from an emotional detached place where you can watch it almost like a replay, like going through the plays to see how you can improve your game. It's like, if you can look at it like that and dissect, oh, no wonder I do this fill in the blank self-sabotaging behavior, or no wonder I have a tendency to have this fall into this pattern. I never thought about it before, but all of that connects to, you know, my fear of abandonment during a severe poverty during my early childhood, right? My needs don't matter. The family is in, you know, absolute duress, right? Something like that got planted in. And maybe now in a subtle way, you don't realize that you go through life not feeling like your needs matter and feeling like nobody else thinks your needs matter. And it would seem that your needs are never being prioritized, right? And that's like the mirror that's being held up to you is like no one cares about your needs aren't getting met. It's like basically it's like a mirror so that you can see like, oh, this reality is what my subconscious is bringing towards me. This is what my subconscious is producing. It's not true. My needs do matter. But until I understand that I am telling myself this, that my subconscious is communicating this to me, it's like the universe, like the law of attraction, the way that the universe responds to us, it's like it has no choice but to be like, well, if you say so, like, this is your reality. You're creating your reality. We're just showing up. We just work here. So it's like, if this is what you want, like, or we don't recommend, but so reality keeps demonstrating your needs don't matter. Your needs aren't getting met. And until you start shifting your subconscious and rewriting it to have a subconscious understanding that no, actually my needs do matter and my needs can get met. And then it's weird. It's like all of a sudden the scenarios that are happening around you will change and situations will just alleviate. The problem will just alleviate. I literally, you guys know that I've been telling you guys for like 3 years now about my air conditioner pumping like too much humidity into the air. Like my usual air quality is like sitting at like 88% humidity unless I'm running a dehumidifier. And so I've been trying to get my real estate or my landlords to fix this. And the maintenance dude, like everybody just keeps blowing me off. They're like, it's running properly. Or maybe it's this. It's just, like, you know about the pipe? I'm like, I know about the pipe. I'm a pipe expert. I don't want to talk about the pipe anymore. We have narrowed down everything. Like we've ruled out everything. Like, and they keep circling back to the same old things. And so it was so crazy because I stayed up for Shabbat and I fell asleep. And then I tried it again the second night. It was this big holiday, a Hebrew holiday this week that connects to the energy that God revealed to Moses on Mount Sinai. And so I failed at the first attempt, which just like the Israelites, they failed at keeping the covenant between them and God in the first attempt. So I attempted to stay up throughout the night, the next night, and do my studies. And in the morning, the maintenance guy, like, first of all, there was a journal entry that was like, who do you want to be closer to? Like, who have you kind of taken? It's like a situation where like, where did you feel obligated? What have you been taking for granted? Like, how can you do something to get this, to make an effort to bring closeness with you and this person? I was like, well, my mom, and I'd been wanting to be closer with my mom. We've always had a challenging relationship. And I was like, I should have appreciated my opportunities to take her to her doctor's appointments more. And I wish I hadn't have felt so tired and stretched thin and stressed about time and all of that. So I could have been more enthusiastic about going. And we would have had a good time and there would have been more light revealed in those visits rather than me being on edge and, trying to push through a bad mood, And I was like, well, lo and behold, I wake up that morning and my mom sends me a text message. She's like, do you want to go, want to go to lunch? It's your day. It was my days off coming up. And I didn't answer right away. So I was just waking up, but immediately the test arose. It was like, I was immediately like, my subconscious was feeling victimized, feeling defensive of my time. I don't have any time. Like, this is the first day off that I had forever and I'm not obligated to anybody and like, I don't have to do anything. And like, I need to like catch up on like these important projects that I'm trying to do so that I'm not a server forever. And I went into all that drama. And then I was like, wait, I'm being the effect. I am being affected. So I can't respond until I get my consciousness right. So I spent some time just trying to like shift my attitude about this. And when it was all good and I was excited about going to lunch, I answered her, we made plans. And then my maintenance guy pulls up next door. He's going to fix something with the neighbors. And then he sees that my pipe is not dripping the condensation, the pipe. And finally, after looking at it 500 million times and me like telling all of these people and then supposedly them sending professionals over, they're like, everything's fine, everything's working fine. He's like, wow, that's not functioning right. Your pipe isn't dripping. This isn't right. It's broken. And I'm like, it was as if there was a magic spell over all of these people, keeping them dumbfounded and aloof for like 3 years. And the moment like I start making progress in the family healing, in the healing of the parent stuff, it was like, oh, guess what? All the extra water in the air, excess emotion, right? Out of place, making the atmosphere uncomfortable, right? Leaving an uncomfortable atmosphere. It's so interesting that all of a sudden he's like, oh, yeah, we're going to get on top of this. I'll have those guys come back over. I'll insist that they keep probing and keep looking for the problem. And if it doesn't get solved, then we'll get a new air conditioner put in. And it was like all of a sudden he was just like determined. Then he came inside and he was like, oh, this dehumidifier, it's like, this is not a long-term fix. This was only like a temporary thing. And I'm like, dude, I could just jump out of the window right now. Crazy. Like, why are you just now like coming? Like, I've been begging you to like see all of this for I don't know how long. And he's like circled around these things over and over again, but it was just like all of a sudden he was like, gosh, wow, we gotta take care of this. I'm so sorry. So it was just so crazy. And then I showed him the other things. He had like left my he was like, how did the back plate fall off your oven? And I'm like, you left it off the last time you were here. Here are the bolts. Like, I didn't even know if you were finished, like, fixing it. Like, I'm just, like, dumbfounded. But all of that to say, it was after I dove in to this ritualing where I was like, okay, I'm looking into this. I'm looking into where my subconscious is, like, you know, messing with me. I am seeing where I'm being the effect, and I'm seeing ways that I can mend this relationship with my mother. And then all of a sudden, unrelated things are getting resolved. That's what I'm saying, is that like when you do the inner healing and when you make the inner shifts, sometimes the outer conditions change like magic. And you can keep trying to give outer solutions to the outer problems, but if you don't do the internal shift, the outer problems will just keep persisting. So your outer efforts they'll be in vain unless you do the shift on the inside that those things are arising to show you in the first place. We're in the simulation. So that was part of the friends card, is that it's like there's something about your parents that left a very deep lasting impression and affected you. And so you might be playing out patterns that you witnessed in their relationships within your relationships. You could be looking for like aspects of your parents that you didn't get from your parents and other people. So maybe go back and re-examine how the impression that your parents left on you, not just like the dramatic stuff that you can remember easily, but like, what do you remember observing about them on a day-to-day that would have imprinted their ways onto you? Second interpretation here that I've noticed is that everyone's been going through trials and tribulations. We in the end times. We just came out of the Omer, which is a period of 7 weeks following Passover every year. That is a very challenging time for everyone. Our souls are challenged on every level. And it's like, it takes us back to the time when the Israelites were in the wilderness. They'd left Egypt, but now they're faced with the unknown. And they're like, you know what? We might want to go back to the devil that we know. And so this is a time to look at the ways in our own self, how we are like defaulting back to wanting to go back to our old patterns, and seeing that underline those subconscious things come up. We're seeing our fears, our insecurities. It's like the universe, the God manifesting through the universe is just turning up the volume on the things that scare us, the things that make us feel insecure, the things that make us feel worried about life. It's like it's showing us all that stuff because it wants us to see where the ego leaves gaps for these lies to come in and for the opponent to come in and mess with us and dim our light and dim that light down. So we're all going through challenging times right now. So you may be called, or like someone may need you, right, as a shoulder to lean on. I went out with my mom to lunch today, and she's had these strange like ailments that have to do with like something in her nerves, in her nervous system. Like doctors are arguing about if it's like her neck or the like spinal collapsing, or if it's this thing or that thing, and none of them agree. And it causes her to get really dizzy and sometimes faint and lightheaded, and it sends hot pains suddenly, unexpected, through like her body. And then she's been told before that she had like an injury that made her spine, like it's putting a lot of pressure on her spinal cord. And so she has been told by doctors that it's like very dangerous for her to get into like an accident because she could be paralyzed. So she's like lives with this fear. And she recently fell and broke her leg. And so like in a way it was like traumatizing, but in a way it was like, hey, that's kind of a relief because you've been afraid of even like falling down or anything because of your neck. So today she was just like talking about, you know, her stuff, and she's had like doctors yell at her and be mean to her about like, I'm not that doctor, why did you come in? And you know, like it's like, oh sorry, I don't have a medical degree. Sorry for the gap in my medical education, sir. Sit down. But yeah, so, you know, I know she probably gets tired of talking about it. And then she was like, and then the doctor said that his mom was always complaining about her health. And she was like, I don't want to be that way. And he goes, no, you're supposed to tell me about your issues. I'm your doctor. But she was like, yeah, but I don't want to. And I'm like, oh, you know, it's just like, but I was there and it was good because I was able to give her comfort and give her a patient ear. And what is frustrating for her is that whenever she goes and tells these doctors these things, just like when I try to tell these men about the things about the air conditioning system that they keep telling me about how it's the pipe. I'm like, it's not the pipe. It's not the coil. We've unclogged the coil like a million times. It's not that it didn't need it, but this is not going to resolve the issue. And it's like, just listen to the whole thing so you can understand how everything is connecting, please. So maybe there's, you know, you just need to be there for someone, one of your friends or family that needs you, or a parent. But maybe someone in your life needs that friendship. Or maybe you have like a lot going on and a lot to focus on, but like things keep coming up with your friends, and you're like, oh, you're torn because you feel like you've got to get all your work done, but then you're like, but I'm not getting to see any of my friends and I'm having to blow people off all the time. And it's like if we don't make time for friends, then there's no joy in life. So while it does feel like sometimes we go through seasons where we just don't have time, it's good to make sure to make that time and to cultivate that time at least a little bit here and there. Because if we don't, then we won't have time. And it's so funny. I always use this show as an example right now because that's the show I'm binging and watching over and over again. But in The Chosen, like somebody was like, Jesus, is it okay if we stop by this city? I have a friend there that I would like to see on the way to such and such, you know, if we have time, if there's a way. And Jesus is like, yeah, if we don't have time for friends, then like, what are we doing, you know? So random card thrown into this reading is like friends. So it's like, it might feel like unexpected things with friends pop up and you may feel pressed for time, but maybe it would be good to try to make a little bit of time if it comes up and you're like, oh, I want to do this, but it's good to spend time with friends. They might need you. Clarifying the bluff card, we've got Six of Swords reversed. So Six of Swords reversed is like a feeling of being stuck, not being able to move forward through a difficult situation. It's like you feel like you're just like stuck in this like situation. You can't get out of it. You're not making any progress. And I think it might, like with the pairing with the bluff card here, it's almost as if it's like our imposter syndrome, our lack of confidence in ourselves is holding us back. It's the thing that's holding us back right now. And so in order to get through what might very well be a difficult time, it's like you can't be timid and feel like you're not ready yet. It's like you've got to jump before you're ready kind of thing. So if there is like a new opportunity to try something new, then don't hold yourself back forever in procrastination and perfectionism. Don't have like the whole imposter syndrome, I can't do it, because that might be the thing that's keeping you in a stuck situation. So, fake that confidence until you build it in. Underneath indecision, we've got Eight of Pentacles. So Eight of Pentacles is about long-term study and apprenticeship, and like say you were starting a business, or you're an entrepreneur, or you're a student. Something that you're always working at and perfecting and mastering, like a skill, like self-mastery. But it's a long-term project. It's nothing that's going to be done fast. And so I feel like and then there's Temperance upside down. So it's in reverse. So Temperance in reverse is like, hey, you need to like take a good look at your life. Like, is everything going? Are you happy with things as they are at the moment? Because if not, like you need to like reevaluate things and make a plan. Six of Swords reverse also has this vibe of like, hey, there's a lot of like just chaos in the air. There's no real direction here. Like we need to like hone it in. And so it's like we're feeling like overwhelm. Like we're out of our depth. And so it's like it's causing that freezing response. Oh, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to begin. I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I know how. And so it's like keeping you stuck, keeping you overwhelmed, and you're not moving forward. So there's like an encouragement here to like get focused, get a plan together, hunker down and get quiet, and do an evaluation of self, where we're at here. Like, where is my consciousness? What's coming up? What is really coming up that's causing these issues? So do a self-evaluation, and then alongside that, kind of look at your goal and your big plan, and maybe give it another look. Take another stab at it. Reconfigure. There's something that you need to get more organized. Like there's an execution. There's like, you've got all these things up in your mind that need to be done, but they need to be executed in like a detailed way and in a timely manner. So there's so much and you're like, I don't know where to begin. So just begin with getting all of that out onto a pen and paper. I love having a journal, a planner. It's so much easier to me than going into my phone and looking through, like I do have tons of notes and things like that, but like being able to have a planner and like have a pen that you put to paper, there's something like a magical creator act of writing things out. It like solidifies it. It like sets it in stone almost. So write this out in like the form of an outline or a plan that you can then begin to say, okay, in what order do I need to do these things? And then like literally order them so that you have everything in order, you have a step-by-step plan, and now you know what to do. And that will help. And then you just consistently chip away at it and don't stop until it's done. Don't get frozen. If you won't get frozen if you have a step-by-step, like, okay, I'm done with this task. Now I need to move on to this task. And now I can move on to this task. And that kind of helps you cut down from that time during the day where you're just like spinning and oscillating back and forth, like, what am I doing? What do I do? I'm going to go stare into the refrigerator again for a while. And then I'm going to take a pause in the middle of the hallway and think back to a time that makes me cry. And then I'm going to weep a minute, and then I'm going to like pull it together and be like, oh my God, like, was that just like 15 minutes? Like, how much of my day has been just burned in like those moments where you're just like, and you just daydream. It's like daydreaming is very good, especially if you're creative, but like it needs to be siphoned and channeled and used with intention. So that's why I like to have plenty of times where I go on long walks, I go on long runs, because those are the times when I get to like be in my imagination. And it's like more potent that way than if I'm just lollygagging all day long and I've got like I'm just like completely ungrounded. Now, sometimes that's good because sometimes those are the times when your subconscious comes up and it shows you things. And when that stuff's going on, follow that down through the rabbit hole and sift through it and unpack it. But sometimes it's just dress rehearsing conversations that haven't happened. It's doing all the things that aren't healthy subconscious coming up, remembering something and being like, oh, wow. And then the emotion comes forward. That is raw material that you can work with. That is going to help heal. So those are the good moments to let yourself drift into a trance. But if it's wasteful trance, save it for the walk. Okay. So getting a plan, getting disciplined, getting focused, and just knowing too that you might slip into trauma responses when your nervous system becomes dysregulated, right? And there's so much material online that you can look up about how to recognize a dysregulated nervous system, how to soothe the dysregulated nervous system. It just so happens that To Be Magnetic, during their summer challenge, they've gone sorry, I've got like something in my eye that's like bothering me. They've gone really deep in the summer challenge into like categorizing dysregulated nervous systems, helping you like recognize when you're in a dysregulated state. And then they've made some extra DIs that are specifically geared towards fight mode, flight mode, freeze mode, and fawn mode. So you can listen to those DIs if you find yourself in a dysregulated state, and that can help you get re-regulated. So that's really awesome. In general, To Be Magnetic, the work is all about tapping into the subconscious and rewriting it. And then like doing that deep inner work that you would be talking to a psychotherapist for maybe years on end about. You can do these like workshops and journals and meditations and these hypnotic meditations. And it's like you do so much, so quick. It's so crazy, the results. So if you want to join To Be Magnetic, I think that they're still having their big summer sale, which is, I think, probably 15% off the membership, which is $96 off per year. But if you use my affiliate link, you can get 15% off anytime, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that's my discount code. You are locked in for a full year of membership, but I've never once regretted having it. It's amazing. I think it's like $30 a month with no discount and like $20 a month when you have the discount or something like that. But yeah, you can follow the link below if you wanted to join the challenge. If you're like, what's To Be Magnetic? You can listen to their podcast and learn more about them. But basically, there's all these workshops on this website where they sort of lead you through unblocking different areas of your life and your psyche, like healing inner child stuff, unblocking your shadow, unblocking your love life, unblocking finances. There's a workshop for if you're in a rock bottom. There's a workshop for if you are in an up level or getting out of a rut, like all kinds of things. There's like monthly calls that they do like extra supported stuff in. So there's this whole library of just like listening to like those extra calls plus the podcast. Plus there is endless material that I never even have time to use it fully, but it's amazing. So you can find that link below if you're looking for a structured way to sort of start working with healing your nervous system and your subconscious and your self-worth and your, psycho stuff. So not like psycho stuff, but like psychology stuff. And then as a result, you begin to start manifesting things. You become really magnetic and your manifestations just start coming through. So there's a fun side of it too. It's not all just work. All right, y'all. See you tomorrow. Ciao.